He came to London to party, but within hours, he found himself standing in court, facing real charges. What started as a stupid joke meant to get some laughs ended with the police dragging him away. Now, he was at the mercy of a judge who looked like she had already made up her mind. But the worst part? His punishment turned out to be way worse than jail. Let's break down how one dumb decision turned his dream trip into a living nightmare. All right, let's get one thing straight. I wasn't trying to cause an international incident. I was just being, well, me. Jason Whitman, 24 years old, self-proclaimed king of harmless pranks, the kind of guy who thought yelling random nonsense in public was the height of comedy. And my best friend Kyle, let's just say if bad ideas were a sport, he'd have a gold medal and a sponsorship deal. We were in London, living what we called the ultimate degenerate tour, which was really just an excuse to spend an entire week drinking our weight in cheap beer, making terrible life choices, and seeing if we could make it out of another country without getting deported. So there we were, half drunk by noon, stumbling through the streets of London like we owned the place, with a warm six-pack stuffed into my backpack and Kyle double-fisting beers like the world was ending. Classy, I know. And then I saw him. The royal guard, tall, unshakable, dressed like some kind of 18th century action figure, standing there like a statue while tourists snapped photos in his face. He didn't blink, didn't move. Dude was a human rock. That's when my genius brain decided to make an appearance. $10 says I can make him blink, I muttered, nudging Kyle. Kyle snorted. $10? Make him cry, and I'll buy your next round. I grinned. Deal. Now, any rational person would have maybe told a joke, done a silly dance, literally anything other than what I was about to do. But no, my brain had been marinating in cheap lager all morning, so instead, I did the most Jason Whitman thing possible. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a half-eaten burger, because obviously I had one, and chucked it at the guy's boots. Splat! A streak of mustard and shame smeared across the clean pavement. The guard didn't even flinch, not even a twitch. The dude had nerves of steel. Kyle? Losing his mind. Bro, no reaction, zero emotion. He was wheezing, barely holding himself up. Now a normal person would have stopped, maybe apologized, but nope. The fact that this guy hadn't reacted just fueled my stupidity. It was go big or go home at this point. So, naturally, I grabbed an empty beer can from my backpack, aimed, and let it fly. Clang! The aluminum smacked right off his helmet, ringing out through the courtyard like a bell of pure idiocy. A few tourists gasped. A couple even took a step back. Kyle? He hit the floor, doubled over, laughing so hard he sounded like he needed medical attention. Dude! You gotta record that! And because my brain-to-logic ratio was running dangerously low, I did exactly that. I yanked my phone out, shoved it right in the guy's face, and started recording. Say hi to YouTube, buddy. I waved a middle finger like an absolute genius. And that was the exact moment things took a nosedive off a cliff. A voice, stern, official, and carrying the weight of 1,000 bad decisions, rang out behind me. Sir, step away from the guard immediately. I turned, expecting some random old guy, maybe a security guard, maybe an angry tourist. Nope. It was 2 London police officers. And let me tell you, they did not look amused. Aw, come on, mate. It's just a joke, I slurred, trying to play it cool. The officer barely even reacted. Right. You're under arrest. I blinked. Wait, for what? The cop's lips barely twitched. Assaulting a member of the King's Guard. Kyle took a very slow step back. Oh, this is bad. And before I could even process what was happening, the officers grabbed my arms. Sir, you're coming with us. Kyle was suddenly nowhere to be found. The laughter died in my throat. Suddenly, this wasn't funny anymore. The police van smelled like old sweat, regret, and shattered vacation plans. Jason sat on a rock-hard bench, his wrists sore from the cuffs that had been way too tight for way too long. His stomach churned, not from the beer, but from the horrifying realization that this was actually happening. Kyle, that traitor, he was nowhere to be found. The second the cops showed up, he vanished into the crowd like some kind of street magician. No texts, no calls, nothing. Jason could already imagine Kyle, probably at some pub right now, laughing over a beer, telling strangers, "Man, you should have seen my buddy get arrested. Funniest thing ever." Yeah, real funny. The van came to a sudden stop, and before Jason could even process what was happening, the doors swung open. Two officers yanked him out, guiding him through a dimly lit hallway that smelled like cheap disinfectant and bad decisions. Then came the interrogation room. Cold gray walls, one steel table, two chairs, a flickering overhead light that made the whole place feel straight out of some detective drama. Jason had seen enough crime shows to know that this was not where you wanted to be. And then Inspector Williams walked in. The guy was built like a brick wall, his uniform crisp, his posture so rigid it looked painful. He carried a thick folder, one that Jason had a very bad feeling about. Williams sat down across from him, dropped the folder onto the table with a dull thud, and fixed Jason with a stare so intense it could have melted steel. Jason swallowed. "Listen, officer, this is all a huge misunderstanding," he started, doing his best innocent tourist impression. Williams didn't blink. "Oh? So you didn't throw a beer can at the King's Guard's head?" Jason opened his mouth, then shut it. His brain scrambled for a response. "I mean, technically, but..." "Bad answer. Very bad answer." Williams let out a slow breath, then casually flipped open the folder and slid a photo across the table. Jason stared at it, his own face frozen in time. His expression twisted into a drunken grin, flipping off the royal guard like some absolute idiot. His stomach dropped into his shoes. "So," Williams said, leaning back in his chair, "you do realize that assaulting a member of the King's Guard is punishable under UK law, yes?" Jason let out a nervous chuckle, the last bit of hope draining from his body. "That's, like, a real crime?" Williams did not smile. "Oh, absolutely, and the Crown takes it very seriously." Jason stared at the photo again, as if maybe, just maybe, he could blink and make it disappear. "Come on, man," he said, forcing out a weak laugh. "It's not like I punched him or something." Williams didn't react. Instead, he slid another paper across the table. Jason's eyes darted down. A charge sheet. He started reading. Public disorder. Assault on a uniformed officer. Destruction of property. Wait, property? Jason's brain short-circuited. What property? Williams flipped through his folder again. The beer can left a dent in the guard's helmet. That's military equipment. Jason blinked. You're kidding. Williams did not look like a man who had ever made a joke in his life. Jason exhaled so slowly it felt like he was deflating. His pulse pounded in his ears. Okay, so, what happens now? Williams leaned back, crossing his arms. Well, given that we have video evidence, eyewitnesses, and a formal complaint from the palace, we'll be presenting your case to the court in the morning. You could be facing a fine. Jason let out a sigh of relief so deep he nearly passed out. Williams continued, completely unfazed, or up to 6 months in prison. The relief evaporated so fast it left burn marks. Jason snapped upright. 6 months? For a beer can? Williams shrugged. The law's the law. Jason's heart pounded. This could not be happening. 6 months? In a British prison? He hadn't even finished his vacation, and now he was looking at being locked up with actual criminals? His mind spiraled into pure panic mode. This wasn't some slap on the wrist, oh, pay a little fine and be on your way, sir, kind of situation. This was real. Jason buried his face in his hands. He was so screwed. If someone had told me at the start of this trip that I'd be standing in a British courtroom trying to talk my way out of a crime that involved a beer can and a very angry legal system, I would have laughed in their face. Yet, here I was. The courtroom was straight out of a BBC crime drama. Polished wood, cold marble floors, and an atmosphere so intimidatingly formal that I immediately felt severely underdressed. Everyone in the room had this air of serious authority, like they had been born to judge people like me, and at the center of it all sat the judge, an older woman with a stare so unimpressed it could crush egos on sight. I stood stiffly in the defendant's box, trying not to look like the panicked tourist I absolutely was. Beside me was my public defender, Martin, a tired-looking guy who had definitely dealt with far too many idiots like me in his career. He leaned in and whispered, "Whatever you do, don't act like an idiot." I wanted to argue, but yeah, fair enough. Then the prosecutor stood up, a sharp-looking man in a crisp black suit, his expression so serious it actually made me nervous. He adjusted his tie, gave me a look like I was some sort of national embarrassment, and then went straight for the kill. Your Honor, the defendant, an American tourist, intentionally and aggressively assaulted a member of the King's Guard. We have video evidence confirming this. The prosecution recommends the maximum penalty. My stomach sank. Did he just say maximum penalty? For a beer can? I looked over at Martin, waiting for him to save me. He stood up, cleared his throat, and did his best to make me sound like a misunderstood saint instead of an international idiot. Your Honor, my client deeply regrets his actions. He was intoxicated and unaware of the severity of his behavior. We ask for leniency. The judge finally looked at me. Mr. Whitman, do you have anything to say for yourself? Okay, Jason, this is your shot. Say something smart, something that shows you're not a complete lost cause. I opened my mouth. And my brilliant defense? Sorry? The entire courtroom fell into silence. Martin visibly winced. The prosecutor looked like I had just handed him an easy win on a silver platter. And the judge? She let out a sigh so deep it could have shaken the foundation of the building. Mr. Whitman, your behavior was not only disrespectful but unlawful. However, as this is your first offense, and since you appear to be a somewhat functioning adult, I am willing to offer an alternative sentence. My ears perked up. Alternative? That sounded good. You will spend the next 30 days performing public service, cleaning streets and assisting sanitation workers. I blinked. Wait, what? The judge didn't pause. And, as an educational measure, you will spend 2 full weeks under supervision with the King's Guard, learning firsthand about the discipline and respect required for their position. I felt my brain short-circuit. You want me to... The gavel slammed the test down, cutting me off before I could even process what was happening. Sentence confirmed, court dismissed. And just like that, it was done. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the reality of my new life set in. I came to London to party. Now, I'd be spending a month picking up trash. And worst of all, for 2 whole weeks, I'd have to stand perfectly still. What would you have done in Jason's place? Would you have tried to talk your way out of it, or just accepted your fate and learned your lesson the hard way? Have you or someone you know ever gotten into trouble while traveling? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear your wildest vacation stories. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this breakdown of Jason's royal disaster. This story isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder that actions have consequences, and a little respect goes a long way. We create these stories to shed light on real issues and hopefully make the world a better place. Your opinion matters, so let's talk about it.